Behind me is a scene from when I was in Barbados in 2015. Um, it was after my mom had died, and I went back with my friends and my family to bury my mom. During that time, I took a walk because walking always clears my mind. I don't know if that's the same for you, but when I walk, I have the ability to listen to myself, to listen to my thoughts, and to find clarity with those thoughts. During many of those walks, there are a lot of things that I identify. You know, it could be about myself, it could be about other people. But I find that it's in the tranquil moments, the moments when there is no noise, that I can actually hone in and make sense of foolishness, as the Barbadians would say. What is foolishness? Foolishness is believing that there is no pain in this world. Foolishness is believing that the pain you endured as a child is something that you can avoid, bury, or ignore. Pain is real. And the only way to deal with pain is to bring it to the forefront. As a counselor, as someone who mentors other people, the issue of pain is manifesting so much in not just today's society, but is an eternal problem. It's a problem where people refuse to acknowledge their pain because they don't want to deal with it. They just don't want to feel the way they felt, whether they were children, teenagers, young adults, adults. Nobody wants to purposely address something that has caused them so much angst. But it's necessary to address your pain. I've talked a lot about pain, and I've talked about pain from the perspective of healing. I've talked a lot about pain from the perspective of facing your deepest and darkest, desires, or deepest and darkest secrets. Everybody has secrets, and if you don't, then you're unusual. But today I want to talk about vulnerability. I want to talk about vulnerability because vulnerability is another aspect of pain that people try to avoid. Many people do not want to be vulnerable. They do not want to be seen as vulnerable. They don't want to become vulnerable because they're afraid that they will become a victim of prey. Prey by other people who may minimize their pain, prey of other people who might not, might laugh or ridicule them for that vulnerability. And therefore, a lot of people choose not to be vulnerable. So we have a society that's filled and full of people who refuse to show that they're vulnerable or that they can be vulnerable. But if the truth be told, vulnerability is a part of human nature. It is something that you should not avoid. It's something that you need to embrace. I have found that a lot of people, including myself, when I was young, it wasn't as idyllic as the scene back here, always walking through Barbados and seeing the bougainvillea. There were moments when the bougainvillea were there, but I didn't pay attention to the bougainvillea because my mind was chaotic or I had chaos in my life. If you want to get rid of the chaos in your life, if you want to get clarity, then you have to deal with your pain, and in turn, you have to deal with your vulnerability. What is vulnerability? Vulnerability means that you have to face those things that you don't want to face. Vulnerability means facing truths that you may have rejected or truths that you do not want to acknowledge. Being vulnerable means opening up yourself to someone else, to let them see your vulnerability and appreciate that you are not the person that you project. Let's talk about that projection. For most of us, projection is real. For most of us, the image that we project to others is not the same person that we are when we're alone. It's like singing in the shower. Most people sing in the shower and they sing loud and proud, and then they get up in front of someone else and they start singing, and there's a different reaction and there's a different sound altogether. The same is true of you and your vulnerability. If you can't be vulnerable with someone else, then you're not living your authentic truth or you're being your authentic self. So it behooves you to learn how to be vulnerable with others. I also realize in my own life, I can only use my life as a barometer right now, that there are moments in my life when I have used my weakness to make me strong. How is that? There are moments in my life when I pretended that the things that made me vulnerable didn't exist, or I ignored my vulnerability and I thought that I was really strong, that I was this force to be reckoned with, that nobody else could take me down. I was invincible. A lot of us felt like that when we were young. As we grow older, we realize there's no such thing as invincibility, because as you keep on living, life will keep on throwing you continuous things to test that notion of invincibility. But for me, I used my brokenness to build me. I used my brokenness to make me feel like I was strong, that I could endure things that were thrown my way, whether they were darts, whether they were insults, whether it was criticism, whether it was other people's notions or beliefs about me or opinions about me. I use those things as fuel for my energy, as fuel for my motivation. How many of you are motivated by your invulnerability? How many of you are motivated by your vulnerabilities? Does that make sense? How many of you are built the way you are because you have taken the worst things in your life and made those things significant? You've built a wall so strong and so high in front of yourself that people can't climb over that wall because they don't know the depth or the length of the wall. Only you know the perception of that wall. How many of you are afraid of others climbing that wall? How many of you feel, even though you are afraid or you know that others cannot possibly climb that wall because they have no knowledge is there, how many of you are afraid of people actually penetrating the wall without your knowledge and without your permission? That's your inability to become vulnerable. At some point, you have to allow yourself to bring the wall down. Whenever the word wall is mentioned, I always think about resistance. I always think about barriers. And as long as you have resistance and barriers in place for other people, it's not for other people that those barriers and resistance are in place. It's for yourself. You're trying to protect yourself from pain. You're trying to protect yourself from allowing others to get to know you on a real intimate level. For many of us, vulnerability and intimacy are one and the same. A lot of us cannot allow ourselves to be intimate because we don't know how to be vulnerable. A lot of us cannot allow ourselves to be human or to feel any emotion because the aspect of vulnerability is very real. I'm here to tell you that the power that you believe you are is no power at all unless you embrace that vulnerability. Real power cannot be found with walls, resistance, or barriers. Real power is found when you allow those barriers and walls to crumble and instead you embrace the truth about yourself. I truly believe that the ultimate goal of the human race and every human being is to embrace the good, the bad, and ugly about yourself. You can't just think that you're all one way, or you can't believe that everybody else is wrong and you're right. I mean, a lot of us think that way. We truly believe that we're okay and they're not okay. And there are times, I'm telling you, when that is true, but it can't always be the rule and not the exception. The truth is that if you want to become your most powerful self, if you want to become your most authentic self, you're familiar with that word, then it is also true that you have to learn how to become vulnerable. Vulnerability means taking down those walls. Vulnerability means examining those things that cause you to be vulnerable in the first place. A good example is Superman. Superman's vulnerability or his weakness is his kryptonite. If you have kryptonite in place and you don't expose yourself to the kryptonite, you'll never know your real power. You'll never know if you can overcome the kryptonite. Sometimes you have to face your very darkest and deepest fears. And those fears lie in what's making you vulnerable. If you can face those fears, you can address your vulnerability. My name is Ingrid Felton. As always, I hope that there is something here that I said that helped you to become better, that helped you to develop your better self or your authentic self. And guess what? It's one day at a time, one step at a time, one foot in front of each other. You don't have to jump. You don't have to leap. This is a steady pace. It's at your pace. So do it today. If you like my videos, as always, please subscribe. Subscriptions, I need them to grow. And also like the videos and also tell your friends. Referral is the best compliment. And please leave your comments below. And I look forward to always seeing you here. Thank you. Bye.